Opposition to proposed Toowoomba shopping mall grows. An organised gang blamed for car thefts, and a rural leader slams the government task force. Good evening and welcome to Thursday's late edition of Here Tonight. A protest vigil is planned for outside the council chamber early tomorrow morning to coincide with the closed meeting of council on the future of the $40 million shopping centre proposed for Toowoomba. The Toowoomba City Council will meet twice tomorrow to make a decision on the controversial proposal. Mary Ellen Ryan today sought opinions from both sides of the issue.
The first meeting tomorrow will probably be a closed one, to allow aldermen to discuss the proposal in private. According to the Mayor, the protest scheduled to coincide with this meeting will be a waste of time.
I don't care how many signatures they come or what they do. It's out of order now. It's out of the objection time. But we've got these others to consider, and all these things that they're doing has all been explained in the actual objections that we have, that we're dealing with in the morning.
Brian Menhennett, however, feels that it may be some people's only opportunity to express their strong opposition to the proposal.
It is something that is a very important issue. It's restructuring the whole of the commercial life of Toowoomba by allowing a rezoning along the lines that is proposed. And we really think that it has been rushed, given that the application was made just around about Christmas time with the Christmas New Year. Then the council themselves admitted that they required a 3-month extension, only to be told that they would have 1 month, and which is virtually expired. And I really feel myself that the whole thing has been, and I'm not one who's sort of saying that there's a conspiracy mentality existing, but when you look at the way the whole thing has been programmed, it certainly has been rushed through, and it's a very important decision.
Mayor Berghofer says some people who now complain about the haste of the decision have in the past criticised him for being too slow with other decisions. The protest methods fail to impress him.
Well, I think there's ways of doing things, and whether it's the right way or not, I don't know. That's up to them. They're doing it, not me, but sometimes I think you can get people offside.
But Mr Menhennett hopes that's not the case.
It's purely to be a peaceful gathering where we hope that those who are looking for a bit of support can get it, and those who are a little bit uncertain of the position can see that there is a community interest and certainly a community opinion on it.
The federal government's appointment of a country task force has been criticised by a cattle industry leader. The task force will visit country areas and discuss the problems of rural Australia. However, the chairman of the Cattlemen's Union, Ray McNamara, says the government, instead of acting positively, is merely flag-waving.
The task force will have its first meeting with country people in Warwick next week. However, Ray McNamara says its appointment is just flag-flying by a government that's fully aware of rural Australia's problems. He describes the mood in the country as pretty irate and says people are genuinely concerned about where the country is headed.
One of the parts of the total issue is that we've priced ourselves out of the world market. Like, it's not just the price of sugar on the world market or the price of wheat. It's our cost of production and our input costs, our tariffs, our taxes that we're paying, and we've reached a stage where we cannot sell on the world markets at the present level of production.
Ray McNamara says the fuel price issue is very important. The full extent of the drop in world oil prices must be passed on.
We've got this piecemeal 5.3 cents a litre overall on petrol and 10.6 on diesel, and that is not the true picture, because half of that 10.6 is road taxes on off-road vehicles that should have never been put there in the first place.
According to the cattlemen's leader, Australia has been trading at a loss for years, and it's now the 7th most indebted nation in the world. So, who has the solution?
Well, it's directly in the federal government's hands. It was in Fraser's hands and he made a mess of it. It's in Hawke's hands and he's made a mess of it. I don't know where we're going. The government doesn't seem to have the answer. And the worrying part of it is that the opposition parties haven't come up with a solution as yet.
Farmers with sound prospects of long-term viability will be able to borrow almost $26 million more from the Rural Adjustment Scheme. The Minister for Primary Industry, John Kerrin, says the federal government will give the states an additional $600,000 interest subsidy to meet demands for the remainder of the year. Mr. Kerrin says the funds will be used for debt reconstruction, farm build-up and farm improvement.
The Rural Adjustment Scheme isn't designed to bankroll the whole rural sector. What it is designed to do is meet the needs of those people who are assessed as viable in the longer term, who've been refused assistance by the banks and in some cases the Commonwealth Development Bank.
You say that these funds are going to be available to farmers with sound prospects of long-term viability. How in the world are you going to judge that?
Well, with the various states with their rural adjustment boards, rural finance commissions, call it what you will, there's farmers on it and people of finance, and they have the unenviable job of making the decision individual by individual, and by and large it works. They have very few bad debts. They give them budgets in terms of debt reconstruction, 7 to 10 years, and it works.
But wouldn't a lot of this long-term viability depend on the sort of interest they're going to have to pay? I mean, 5% could make all the difference.
Yes, well the scheme's now targeting on 50% interest subsidy, so that's quite a big help. And if general interest rates come down, interest rates vary, and as each person's budget is assessed, and it's assessed regularly, sometimes they come to viability quicker, the money's got back quicker, they go on to commercial rates. So it's a very flexible arrangement that really does cater for the individual's needs.
The state opposition claims it's been necessary to make major modifications to equipment at Toorong Power Station to enable it to use the local coal. Deputy Leader Tom Burns says Toorong coal is incompatible with the original equipment to the extent that the plant is being gummed up. He says 2 boilers have been modified, work on a 3rd is underway, and the 4th will be soon modified. Mr Burns says the government was warned in 1978 that the coal at Toorong was of poor quality. While Mines and Energy Minister Ivan Gibbs maintains the cost of the modifications is the responsibility of the construction contractor, Mr Burns says consumers will eventually pay for Toorong's problems.
Thieves broke into a Toowoomba car yard last night, stealing a Commodore Bellina car and the keys to all the cars kept in that yard, the 3rd crime of its type in recent days. The repetition and method of the crime has led police to assume that the crimes are being committed by an organised gang of thieves.
Commodores are apparently the flavour of the month among car thieves, with thieves in Toowoomba having stolen 2 in a matter of days. The theft of a $15,000 car from Reese Edwards Enterprises last night has forced the proprietor to spend $4,000 replacing the old chain fence around the yard to satisfy insurance requirements and deter similar thefts. Reese Edwards, who is offering a $700 reward for the return of the car, feels it's the work of an organised gang.
I think it's organised because they broke into our office and took all the keys to the motor cars, and they selected a particular motor car and they had bolt cutters. It had to be a people of 3 or 4 people to organise all this and to start the motor car and take the right car they wanted and drive through.
Toowoomba police too are convinced the crime is an organised one.
We think it could be an organised gang from down south and had an order for that sort of car, and here they are.
So they're particularly targeting Commodores by the looks of it?
At the moment it's Commodores, yes. Next week it could be Falcons or Fairlanes, anything at all. It all depends on their orders.
So what sort of measures are being taken to catch these people?
We've stepped up our patrols and we've asked for cooperation from the night security people, and we just hope that one of these nights that somebody might ring in and say, listen, could you have a look at such and such, he's got the car that you're looking for. We certainly rely on public support.
Well, motorcyclists in Queensland represent about 14% of the state's road users, but about 25% of road casualties. Despite continuing efforts to reduce the number of accidents involving bikers, the figures continue to escalate. Jim Sweeney reports.
Road safety authorities, bikers and bike associations all have their own thoughts as to why so many accidents involving motorbikes occur. But according to the Queensland Motorcycle Training Centre, part of the reason is that some bike riders don't have the handling capabilities of the bikes they ride. It's the centre's aim to teach riding skills and road safety procedures to all who listen, and fortunately there are plenty who will. Today we took to the track with instructor Stuart Watson, and with cameraman Jack Hardy hanging on for dear life, our pictures show what negotiating a slalom at some speed looks like. When Jack recovers from the experience, he may tell us what it feels like to astride this Yamaha 750. But the point is, this bike in trained hands can do everything and do it safely. And that's the message the training centre wished to impart to all local riders this week. Stuart, do you think bikers generally are sufficiently safety conscious?
Well, Jim, I'd like to think so, but unfortunately the majority of riders out there have a lot to learn. There's still a lot there that is not covered in the licensing procedure, and consequently that's what we're here for, to bring them up to date, make them more aware and safer on the road.
And to teach additional skills.
Oh yes, of course.
The major problem would be, I would think, to convince bikers that they're not quite as good as perhaps they think they are.
No, we've got a saying that we use around the rider training centre. Just thinking you're a good rider may cost you your life. I think that says it all.
Sports news coming up next with Pat O'Shea, and Robin Fellows offered a scholarship with an American university.
Welcome back, everyone. Of course, you're watching Here Tonight. Now it's time for the sports news with Pat O'Shea.
Thank you, Carolyn. Gatton Rugby League is riding high at the moment after its performance in the Woolies pre-season competition. Gatton shared top billing with Warwick after the series, and on Sunday it hopes to continue its good form when it takes on Newtown. Meantime, club coach Graham Pimenta says the club has been boosted by the announcement of its sponsors.
Mr. Alan Muller from Muller's Industries, we're fortunate enough to have him again. This will be the 4th time he's been with us. He'll sponsor the A and C grade. Darryl and Paulette Gollan from the Tats Hotel are sponsoring the reserve grade. And Tony's Snack Bar, a local snack bar in Gatton, will sponsor the under-18, combined with Eben Lodge Refrigeration, who sponsor the under-18 boys right throughout with jackets. So it's great news, really.
After a shaky start in the Newtown night competition, you rose to the occasion in the Woolies pre-season comp.
Yeah, well, probably the night against South and the Newtown competition, we just didn't fire quite as well as we had hoped. Dropped a few balls at vital times and things like that, but sort of picked ourselves up again and put a little bit together through the Woolies, so hope we can go on with it.
You've already won an Ipswich premiership and you've had a lot to do with Toowoomba football. How do the two competitions compare?
Oh, the Toowoomba competition definitely faster, John. This is what we've tried to work on in the first month or so, to get the players used to that pace. But the hardness, I think, in the defence, I think it might have shown a little bit in our games that the boys certainly tackle a little bit harder, and that's helped us so far.
The $75,000 Easter Sires Sprint Series commenced today at Clifford Park. There were 9 heats and there was plenty of speed. We've got some of the highlights for you. Races 4 and 5, and you can certainly see there's no time lost in sprint racing.
Off they go, and Dexunder came out pretty straight away well with Magic Dozen. Also Felica Cross and Pine Deck went very quickly, and Bucko's Pal further out with Ray John King, and behind there was Sunder Show and Miss Jet Travel. Here's Pine Deck moving up, and Magic Dozen, they going to fight out the finish of this, but Pine Deck is going to be far too good. Pine Deck has won from Magic Dozen. Third is Ray John King. Off they go, and Jet Flare got up in the air a bit and played up, and so Master Bolero away a bit awkward. Settling down was Don's Dozen in a stride quickly, and also Chatty Chance, and behind them was Runaway Anyway, and down the outside was Etador, but Don's Dozen is clear down the running. Don's Dozen has got this shot to pieces. Don's Dozen has won it from Chatty Chance and Etador, then Master Bolero.
Last night we ran the story about Robin Fellows being the Butler's Toyota 1045A Sports Star for the month. Now, there's been quite an amount happening since that announcement last night. And as our story went to air, Robin was on the phone and has been offered a full scholarship to the Purdue University in Indiana. Robin is keen to look at the situation because she wants a degree, and the university want a champion thrower with potential, and Robin seems to fit that bill. Now, the Australian Institute of Sport so far haven't actually found a place for her. Perhaps now that this offer has been made, there may be changes in that particular direction as well. But that's the latest news on Robin, and obviously the USA, with their talent scouts here, and there are plenty of them, are of the opinion that this young lady can develop into an outstanding athlete. She's on that way at the moment, and the scholarship to Indiana would be very hard to refuse. I know Robin's thinking seriously about it at present, and we will watch with interest and see if the Australian Institute of Sport can also come up with an offer for her, because we would hate to lose such a great athlete, or potentially great athlete, to Australia. Unfortunately, over the years we've lost a lot to the USA with scholarships. We've now got our own Institute of Sport, and we hope that there'll be some sort of a counter offer from them. That's our sport for tonight. Now it's back to Rod.
Thanks very much, Pato. That's the sporting news, and now to find out exactly what's weather going to be like for a Friday, it's once again a very good evening to Kate.
Good evening, everyone. Well, little change in the weather news, unfortunately. The Bureau says it should stay fine virtually over all of the interior, although some of the southeastern districts may be favoured with a shower or two. Warmest centres today were Inglewood and Goondiwindi, where the mercury climbed to 32. The lowest minimum was 11 degrees at Tenterfield. Next, a satellite photograph. There are showers and storms in the Arafura Sea and Torres Strait near a monsoon trough, and the bright cloud off the Queensland coast is cirrus, associated with a jet stream. Dull cloud in the Tasman and off the South Queensland coast is low-level cloud that's brought some shower activity. The spots of bright cloud off the coast, north of Brisbane, are thunderstorm cells. There's an extensive low and cold front system crossing the south of the continent. Now let's take a look at the chart and get some idea of possible developments. A high near New Zealand has a firm ridge along the Queensland coast, and it's produced scattered showers. However, the main activity has been over the far northeast tropics, and dry conditions have continued over virtually all the interior, although there were some showers this afternoon over the south coast ranges. A front lying across South Australia continues to slip southeastwards, and even though it will reintroduce a trough into the interior of the state for the weekend, there's not likely to be more than isolated showers or storms near it. Well, that's all the weather information we have as supplied by the Bureau of Meteorology for our Thursday late edition of Here Tonight. Right now it's back over to Rod.
Thanks very much, Katie. Well, that's what it's going to be like for a Friday. Hope you have an enjoyable one. We'll be back very, very shortly to continue our late edition of Here Tonight, straight after this break, in fact, so don't go too far away. You're watching Thursday's late edition of Here Tonight. Thanks very much for your company. The controversy surrounding the Queensland Film Corporation has continued this week with the resignation of a senior officer. Corporation Secretary Helen Sweeney says she's resigned because she no longer has a job to perform. For more on the troubled corporation, this report from State Affair.
The Queensland Film Corporation is the centre of a political storm which has rocked the state government. Amid claims of fraud and corruption, half the corporation's staff has resigned. First to go was the corporation chairman, Alan Callaghan. He's since been charged with misappropriating $17,000 from the corporation. Next to resign was Corporation Secretary Helen Sweeney. In her letter of resignation, she said she could not work with the corporation's executive director, Brian Williams. She also said she had no confidence in Mr. Williams' ability as sole administrator. The corporation's administration officer has also resigned. To complicate matters, Callaghan has also alleged a further case of fraud within the corporation. These matters we can't talk about because they're the subject of court cases and police investigations. But to say that something is wrong with the corporation would be an understatement.
I'm a bit saddened at the controversy that the corporation is embroiled in, because basically it's been a good board.
Alan Callaghan, the man at the centre of the storm. He was one of the people responsible for setting up the corporation. He now says it's time to shut it down.
I'm one of those rare people who say, when the Quongo's done the job, time to get rid of the Quongo. And that's been the government's rhetoric. I'm merely saying, OK, live up to the rhetoric.
The Queensland Film Corporation was set up in 1977. Its aim was to encourage the production of movies in this state. The corporation's first chairman, Sid Schubert, said our climate and our locations made Queensland the ideal base for the Australian film industry. Queensland, we were told, would be Australia's Hollywood. Yet despite the claims, few movies were ever produced here. Directors like Peter Weir looked us over and moved on. Movies like Buddies and the big-budget Coolangatta Gold got a lot of publicity but died at the box office. So, what went wrong?
So maybe Queensland was never destined to be the Hollywood of Australia.
I think basically Sydney and Melbourne will always remain the centres of the film industry.
Was that part of the reason you decided to resign?
No, it wasn't. The reasons are in my letter of resignation.
Will this be the end of the corporation, do you think, the fact that several of the staff members have left?
I don't know, Chris. I think the corporation's charter is until October 1987, and it would be up to the government to decide what they're going to do with it.
Right from the beginning, there was talk of a film studio being set up in Queensland, probably on the Gold Coast. The government wanted it to be privately funded, but that much money could never be found.
No, we never got a studio, but we do have a small but viable film industry.
Do you think it's as good as we could have? What was it about Queensland that southern producers maybe turned away from? Is it the distances, the costs?
Cost and distance. To bring a fully fledged film crew to Queensland costs a lot of money, just to bring them from Sydney to Brisbane, and then to take them from there to, say, North Queensland. That costs an absolute fortune. So unless they needed a film with a Queensland-style location or a different location, they weren't going to come here.
Despite the industry problems, the corporation was self-destructing from within. Its headquarters in this city office building were far from peaceful. According to Alan Callaghan, the Queensland Film Corporation had a history of staff problems. He said there were a series of people who were unable or unwilling to work with the corporation's executive director, Mr. Brian Williams.
And that was one of the reasons that the former minister, Mr. Elliott, had to intervene and give certain directions within the corporation. As far as I knew, that was working up to this point, but it appears it wasn't.
Do you think the corporation got the kind of support from the government that it needed?
In essence, no. I think the government could have increased the budget annually. The cost of living rises, the cost of film production rises. The budget remains static and has for the last 7 years. And I think it would have helped the industry if we'd had more to invest in film.
As one of the prime movers in setting up the corporation, are you at all disillusioned now?
No, not disillusioned. We were given a job to do, and I think we've done it. And the reason I recommended winding up the corporation is to save the taxpayers' money. Why keep paying out money for a job that's already done?
The job may be done, but the corporation's dirty laundry is still on view. When the police, the courts and the politicians have finished, there might not be much left. A sad end for an ambitious project.
Well, that brings to an end another late edition of Here Tonight for a Thursday. We certainly look forward to your company again tomorrow with our full hour of news from 6 o'clock. And until then, have a very pleasant evening. Good night to you all.